Welcome to WVTC TV Network, capturing family moments in real time, bringing families closer together from the comforts of home. We are unleashing something different to the world. Start your subscription today for the low price of $4.99 per month or $55 annually. Go to www.wvtctvnetwork.com to sign up today. WVTC TV Network is streaming live on 8 different platforms. You can easily download the WVTC TV Network app on the Apple Store, Play Store, Roku, Fire TV, and more. Here at WVTC TV, we have access to movies that everyone can enjoy, including independent films, Sons of a Preacher and a Good Thing, Treasures of Life, the epic drama, The Passion of the Christ, and the box office hit Madagascar Escape to Africa. Remember, go to www.wvtctvnetwork.com and sign up today.
The following program contains views that are not those of WVTC, iNetworks Communications, their subsidiaries, affiliates, or financial supporters.
Hey Hey, y'all. Good God morning. It is an honor and pleasure to be here. Sorry, we are running a little bit late. Ran into a traffic accident, so I had to wait until they directed me around. But I am so excited to be here. First off, let me say I thank God for this amazing opportunity. Before I get started, I want to send condolences to the owner of WVTC radio station, Reverend Franklin Morse Jr., on the passing of his mother. I would like all of us to keep him and his family lifted up in prayers, because it is so heartbreaking to lose a loved one, especially your mother. You can never get another mother. You know, we have a lot of male figures, but a mama, you can't. So please keep them up in your prayers. As always, we know what the problems are. We know what we need to solve them. What we offer on this platform of solutions, dedicated action that bring about true change. And I just talked about change. No excuses. For excuses are man's tools of incompetence that build bridges nowhere and monuments of nothing. Broadcast live from the WVTC radio and television network. People of God, I am excited because we have some very distinguished guests talking about something that is so important and so vital to our communities, and that is the health of women, the health of our people. And we have, let me first start with our distinguished guests on the that's Skyping, Dr. Angela Willer. Hey.
Hi. Good morning.
It is a pleasure to meet you. Hey, Dr. Willer, tell us about yourself.
Well, I am a family medicine physician with specialty training in sports medicine. I started practicing medicine in, 1995. I started with an orthopedic practice and worked with them for about 5 years. And at the conclusion of that, I did the Summer Olympics in Sydney. You see my little poster behind me.
You were there physically?
I was there. I was one of the team physicians for Team USA.
Okay.
And so that was, one of the great joys and passions in my life was to do some sports medicine. And I continued to do some sports medicine when I got back. And actually, before I left, I was an athletic trainer in college. And I went to Indiana University in Bloomington is where I got my training for sports medicine. And I went to medical school in New Jersey. It was called the University of Medicine and Dentistry at that time. It's currently called Rutgers University. So that's where I went to med school. So I've been a part of Healthy Living with a Vision from its inception proudly. And I'm very happy to join in on the conversation today.
Okay. Now, next to me, the sharp dressing doctor. I just feel intelligent sitting next to him. we have, now, I don't know your first name.
Dr. Ansel.
Dr. Ansel Johnson. Now, I didn't want to say that and mess the name up, so I wanted him to say it first. We don't have one of the moments on TV and radio like, Dr. Ansel Johnson, amazing doctor. Can you tell a bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to have us here. It's always a blessing to share information with our audience and our community. But I'll start from the beginning. I'm a product of Robbins, Illinois. So I grew up in Robbins, grew up in the South suburban area. I went to Eisenhower High School in Blue Island, Illinois Wesleyan University in Bloomington, Illinois. Got my training at the 4-year doctoral program at the New England College of Optometry in Boston. And so I came back here to the area and have been in private practice since 1990 in Blue Island, one of the longest, oldest African-American owned independent eye care facilities in the Chicago area. So we've been serving our community for so long, committed to just being out in the community, I've been honored by Black Enterprise on 2 occasions as one of America's 101 top African-American doctors. We've been honored in the White House in the Clinton administration, outstanding achievement in medicine by the Head Start Association. I'm a product of Head Start, the very first year of the program, coming out of Robbins in 19 something. Okay, so that and so we've just been trying to be one of the most cutting edge eye care facilities in the Chicago area, where we actually connect the dots between your eyewear, your eye care, and your overall health. And we have become known in the Chicago area, actually nationally, in terms of the cutting edge work we do with people living with diabetes and how we connect the dots. Diabetes is the leading cause of blindness or vision loss in adults in the United States. And so we are able to kind of connect the dots and work more on the preventative side. So we position our patients to where you're not going to have to lose your vision. You don't have to. So we actually are another touch point with patients' physicians, patients' endocrinologists, and various specialists to kind of tie all that together with them. Because a lot of times we'll see them before they, or more often than they see their primary care physician. With that being said, that because so many of our people don't know what to do, they're overwhelmed with that diagnosis. In 2020, the year 2020, and it's kind of symbolic. On Juneteenth, 2020, we get our not-for-profit tax ID number for Healthy Living with the Vision Foundation. And as Dr. Wheeler stated, she's one of our founding board members. And so our mission is to eliminate healthcare disparities in historically underserved communities. And that's our community. So we are about giving education and empowering people with information, empowering people, directing them to services that they might not know of otherwise. Because one of our Bible verse theme for our office is people without vision will perish.
Come on. Yes.
So try to live that and help that. And we have a phenomenal board. We've just kind of united with Pastor Cusick here on my right. And so we're about collaboration. And again, thank you for the opportunity here to help us spread the word.
It is my honor. Okay. And then now we have Pastor Philip Cusick.
Yeah, just like music.
Cusick. Yeah. It's a great honor to have you here, sir. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, again, thank you, Reverend Wright, for having us here today.
It's my honor.
Just really happy to be here, along with Dr. Johnson and Dr. Wheeler. So I grew up in Gary, Indiana, family of 13.
Ooh.
Big family. We come out of the Delta of Mississippi, so we still got the mud on our feet and all that good stuff. We're rooted in the African-American experience.
Come on.
Happy to be able to say I pastor a church on the south side of Chicago for the last 32 years.
Wow, 32 years.
And come January, I'll be celebrating 48 years of ministry.
Man.
So really feeling good about
congratulations,
still being around after all of that, and by all of that, that means all the ups and downs, the changes and the turnarounds, to quote the OJs, that you go through in life and in ministry. I was fortunate to graduate from Morehouse College, where I got my bachelor's degree. I got my master's from the Interdenominational Theological Center in Atlanta. And I received my doctor of ministry from Sankofa Seminary in Oklahoma.
Oh, wow.
So just really have, and I mentioned Mississippi because my parents was really keen on community.
Okay.
And in order to have a successful community, you got to have people working together.
Come on.
And so I'll never forget, my father was really into the land, and he purchased a few acres outside of Gary. And we used to have to get up in the morning and go. And literally worked that land, and that's how we ate. You didn't get to feed 13 kids on salary that you made, even in a steel mill. And so we ate from the ground. I'm about 6 feet tall, but I got brothers 6'8", 6'6". They grew big eating from the ground. That's what
The
I'm
good stuff, non-processed.
That's
stuff.
right, non-processed stuff. But there's great disparities in our community on every level. And we're here to talk about specifically about Black women's health, but we know that extends to every aspect of our community. And we have to turn the page, one page at a time. But I want people to read it well before they turn that page so they can understand what we're faced with, what we're challenged with, so that we can ensure that our families are able to survive in a world that hasn't always been kind to us. And so I'm just happy to be able to work with people like Dr. Johnson, Dr. Wheeler, Diane Powell, who's with Lambda Kappa Mu, who's also one of my mentors when we worked together at Metropolitan Family Services, and Dr. Thompson. And we got several people on this team that some will be here in the future. Chanel will be here.
Yeah, I have a show next week.
Right. And so we're just excited.
You know what I heard about this cause, and when Diane spoke to me, it is so important about health in the community, especially our community. And so when she said that, I said, well, we need to dedicate 2 shows. And you talked about the mission. You know, what is it that a distinguished group of men and women, doctors and pastors and leaders, what do you want to accomplish in the communities? What is the message you want people to understand? Is there a disconnect between the knowledge of health in our communities? Is health, as far as our community, especially our Black women, is it talked about enough, whereas people have true understanding about the importance of health or the importance of getting checked out or catching things before it happens? So let's talk about the mission. Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Okay, go ahead.
So yes, to your first question, there's clearly a disconnect among many of our people and the information in our communities that is needed to protect them from diseases and as well as to overcome the disparities that we face. 1.2 million people have HIV/AIDS in the United States, okay? And 13% of them don't even know it. That's 156,000 people who don't even know that they have HIV diagnosis waiting on them. When you look at African-American women, of the 38,000 here in Illinois, 50% of them are African-American women coming up with new diagnoses. We got to stop that.
So you said 50% of the 38,000 cases that's coming in Illinois are Black women.
That's right. And that's about 14,000. I'm sorry, I meant to say United States.
United States.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But that is a problem when you're looking at that type of disparity when we make up 12% of the population. You see?
Yes.
We have to do something to change that trajectory. And our women deserve better. I'll never forget Zora Neale Hurston, one of the great writers, once said that the white man takes his burden and put it on the Black man. The Black man carries it as far as he can. He puts it down, and the Black woman has to pick it up and carry it the rest of the way. And because our people were not getting the proper diagnoses because of prejudice and all types of other barriers, we end up with a disease that first started primarily in the white community, impacting us in ways that it should not today. We're not getting the information. And it's really important. I really want to say this to the pastors. Pastors, I plead with you, stop demonizing people It's because they need to know the truth about how to prevent themselves from getting this disease. And if they feel like there's a stigma attached to it, we need to save ourselves and not allow people to feel that kind of a stigma. So I'm going to put a pin in it right there, and I'm going to let Dr. Johnson, Dr. Wheeler pick it up, because I'm sure they have some interesting and very important things they want to share themselves around this issue.
Okay.
I would defer to Dr. Wheeler.
Dr. Wheeler, okay, it's on you.
Okay, so thank you for that really great introduction in terms of the numbers of cases. What I would like to add is the fact that with so many other things going on, both in health and political and other avenues of life, the light has been shined away from HIV. And so that has been one of the problems. And I'll just add sort of a personal anecdote. It just so happens that when I was in med school is when HIV really started taking off. And, you know, you don't sort of know how you fit into a situation until you get away. And so this was what I found out. And I found this out when I went to do my residency, which I did in Buffalo, New York. But while in Newark, we had a different population. So at the time that there's and it was the truth that the HIV cases were homosexual men. That was sort of the big group. Well, that wasn't the case in Newark, New Jersey. We had heterosexual men who were IV drug users. And so one of the places that we would do part of our teaching at was at the VA hospital. And so we had so many men. If we had 10 admissions, 9 of them were HIV positive, and we were very suspicious about that other one. And so we had a whole different picture of what HIV looked like. And so because of, you know, this phenomenon of having all of these HIV positive men, sort of the next thing that happened is that we had all these kids that we couldn't figure out what was wrong with them. And so one of our pediatricians got the idea of maybe this is HIV. And so we started testing. Come to find out, the babies were positive. Well, then we're thinking, okay, what about the moms? And so kind of in retrospect is how we ended up realizing that the mothers were also HIV positive. And if you can imagine at this time, we had no medications. We had no medication. I mean, we were just coming up with some way to even test individuals at that time. During my residency, we came up with AZT became available, which was so important because now if we can get the AZT to the moms during their pregnancy, we could prevent that transmission to the babies. And so that's where that woman connection comes in a really, really strong way. So, but, you know, since that time, we've had, God knows, all kinds of things, everything from COVID and other things. And so we're just looking in other directions right now. But
Dr. Will, let me ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the lifestyle of people spread it like you had a lot of men that were what we considered the term down low who was bringing this back to women? Do you think it was from drug use? I mean, when you were in your residency and you seen this exploding, was it because of a lot of lifestyles that that's not correct?
At that time, it appeared that it was mostly the IV drug using men who were in sexual relationships with women. And so there was that direct correlation. Now, some of them may have been on the down low, but in our investigation to try and get, you know, histories when patients would come in to the hospital and they would come in really, really sick. That really wasn't a big part of the population that we were seeing. So it may have been happening, but it wasn't clear to us that was the majority of where the cases were coming from.
So a lot of those cases, the ladies didn't know they had it. And a lot of them didn't find out that they had HIV until the kid was tested.
Correct.
And then that was found.
Correct, because HIV can sort of lay dormant in terms of making you really sick for many, many years. So a lot of people, when they're infected, they may get sort of like a flu-like condition that may last just a few days. Usually it's not serious enough to even see a doctor or go to the hospital. So that infection can take place without you really knowing it. And so I think that's why we still have so many people who don't really have a clue. And then down the road a piece, here's the problem with HIV. The problem with HIV is that it affects your immune system, so that it's now easier for you to pick up what we call opportunistic infections. And so these are infections that we don't necessarily see unless you're HIV positive. And so we started looking for those. And so that's kind of how, everything really unfolded. But that initial infection, you can get that infection and really not have a clue. It might come across as like a cold or something. So not everybody runs to the doctor for cold symptoms.
So as a doctor, do you recommend that people get HIV tested when they come for checkups and things of that nature? Do you suggest it, or is it a part of the medical practice to automatically test for HIV?
So that's a really good question. Like I said, there was a time, like when I was in my residency, that was one of those first questions, that you ask. Because when I went to my residency where I did family medicine, I also did OB at that time. And so when I would take my patients through their prenatal treatment and then delivering them, at each point when I would initially be introduced to them, I would ask about, the possibility of HIV. So here's the other piece, though. People who were not involved in homosexual relationships knowingly really poo-pooed the possibility that there could be HIV. But where I came from, where there were heterosexual folks, I didn't have that bias. So the fact that I would even ask a pregnant woman, I would like to include HIV in your prenatal testing, if that's okay with you. Some of them were very offended by that because they thought, well, I'm not in that population. I wouldn't be infected that way. But then when the testing gets done and you find out differently. And so at that time, yes, that was very high on the list of things that we would ask patients about and ask for testing. Fast forward to where we are now, I think that most of the time the HIV testing comes in where, at least in my case, if I'm doing a GYN exam on a woman, and sometimes the patients will come in and say, I just want to be STD checked. And so those are sexually transmitted diseases. We also call it now STIs, so sexually transmitted infections. And so if the patient wants to be tested for whatever reason, they have a new partner and they want to, get checked out before they become physically engaged. Sometimes it happens that way. Sometimes I will ask, but like I said, because we've had, I don't really want to say bigger fish to fry. I'm just going to say different fish to fry, particularly with COVID. The spotlight has been turned away a little bit from HIV. And honestly, we don't see as much. I think right now in my practice, I can think of about 6 or 8 people that are actively being treated for HIV. And 3 of them are women.
Okay. Well, I want to give Dr. Johnson opportunity to chime in on that. But my question is, when people do blood drives, are the blood collected? Is it tested for HIV? And if so, do they inform the people that they are HIV positive?
Oh, that's a great question.
Oh, I'm chasing Oprah. I'm chasing all of I plan on being the next biggest show, but God give me questions to ask. You know, I don't have any premeditated questions, but that is something that people I'm sure the viewers, the millions of viewers that's listening, would want to know.
Okay, you know what? I'm sorry. I looked away for a second. Give me the question again.
The question is, when they have blood drives,
blood drives,
they
okay.
collect blood, is the blood tested for HIV prior to being used by hospitals and medical facilities? And if so, and HIV is detected, is the person contacted who donated blood, or do they just keep it and discard it without letting that person know?
So I'll just say that I know the answer to part of that. I don't know the entire answer. I will tell you that there was a time when the blood supply was not tested. I actually, in my residency, had one of those patients to come into the hospital really, really sick. And this woman had one heterosexual relationship in her whole life with one person. And, you know, as I'm going through, you know, her history, I said to her, I said, do you mind if I test you for HIV? And she said, okay. I said, have you ever had a blood transfusion or anything, surgery? She said, well, yeah, I had my gallbladder out and it was kind of complicated and they ended up giving me some blood. And I said, okay. And lo and behold, her test came back positive, and we think it was from the blood transfusion. So fast forward to now, the blood is tested. I don't think, well, there was a time where they used to keep the blood and use it for research purposes. So what they're doing with it now, I don't know the answer to that. But yes, the blood is tested before it is it's given.
Okay. Well, Dr. Johnson, you hear the from Pastor Cusick and the amazing things said by Dr. Wheeler, Dr. Wheeler.
Right. Yeah.
Weigh on this. Give me your thoughts on this.
Well, piggybacking on what Dr. Wheeler said, I think a lot of it just stems from lack of education and knowledge. In the eye care world, just like how she experienced, sometimes we'll see funny things in the back of the eye that doesn't make sense when a person is looking healthy, maybe, like she said, had a cold or a flu, but otherwise the patient denies any history. So we can't make that diagnosis from looking inside the eye, although the eye is connected to all parts of the body, and most things that can occur systemically will, if not initially, eventually show up in terms of a thorough eye exam. So there are times when we've seen things, and I would send the person back to, say, their Dr. Wheeler or other primary care physician to have testing done. And honestly, in the eye care world, HIV/AIDS might not be the first thing that comes up with, but there are little spots that we can see on the retina that might kind of raise the little hairs on the back of your neck a little bit, wondering, okay, this is not typical in a healthy appearing person. So in terms of how it would approach us in our offices, we'd see an unusual presentation in the eye, and then we get that person back to their primary care physician for workup. And so a lot of times people break their glasses, and we catch a lot of different things and send people back into their healthcare system. And I share with my patients, just being Black is a grind. We just keep grinding and grinding and pushing until the wheel falls off the wagon. We got to approach that differently. And I try to address patients like, we're into prevention here. We want to maintain things. And modern medicine can extend our lives, but what's the quality of life you want to have? Do you want to keep your vision the rest of your life and not lose any functional vision? And that's the philosophy that I have, and that I share with the patients to try to get them engaged in controlling their healthcare, making the right decisions off the best information that they have.
Let me go, because see now, what is the reason or the problem that is stemming in our community where people don't get medical help? And let me come to Pastor Cusick for a minute, because is it that our leaders, especially our church leaders, misinforming our communities with the faith over fear movement far as well, like when I pastored the church for about 3.5 years, and I was a big advocate, still is a big advocate for mental health therapy and going to see the doctor and things of that nature, because a lot of people have the thought that everything is spiritual and I can pray everything away, and don't understand that, far as having faith, you must have some action and movement.
Mhm.
So do you feel that, and I'll let the other two distinguished guests speak on that maybe it is not far as physical health promoted enough in church, or do people feel like you can lay hands on everything and pray everything away, far as a leader, because you have such a great history and length in the church, far as the years of serving, 46 years, correct? 48 years. I'm 51. So when you started,
I'm 32.
Right. So talk to me about that, because
Mhm.
and then I'll have Dr. Johnson and Dr. Wheeler talk about what is blocking. I mean, we know that there is a lack of knowledge as far as what's going on, and a lot of people have fear of going to the doctors because they figure like I'll live longer if I don't know. Yeah, let's be honest. I'll live long because it's like many people who have cancer say, I felt better until the doctor's trying to heal me. So let's talk about that. Then we'll talk about why there is such a disconnect from knowledge in our community as far as this, because some of the things you said I didn't know.
Sure.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, man, I think Oprah and all those people really, they need to watch out. You're on your way. You're closer than you think. I'm gonna tell you right now. And they need to know that you're closer than they think as well.
I appreciate it.
But let's just start from a historical perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And just to be a little preachery.
Come on, preacher. Come on.
Sometimes because we don't focus on a historical perspective, we become hysterical. And we lose sight of all of the things that have played a role in bringing us to where we are today. And while we have had some monumental efforts to redirect these things, I mean, you got Dr. Will, you got Dr. Johnson here today, who are sharing information that can really help people change the health trajectory of their lives. And the fact that we're here on your show being able to do that is important. But listen, African Americans were the guinea pigs for years.
Speak on it. Ooh, that's good.
I mean, you can talk about what happened in Alabama. You can talk about what happened in Georgia, Mississippi. You can talk about what happened on the East Coast in some of the communities. I'm not going to go into all the specific cases, but we know, we have the knowledge, whether you're talking about the Tuskegee experiments or whatever, we have the knowledge. And so do many of our Black men in particular, and Black women who in my mind do a better job often of getting their health checked, but they're faced with so much.
Okay.
So when you have people who have this idea that the healthcare system is not on their side, that's a barrier. That's a barrier.
Okay.
And sometimes we're cutting off our nose to spite our face when we don't find a trusted physician or healthcare provider. So one, we gotta interrupt that way of thinking. Secondly, a lot of the things that happen in the medical community still does not help us, simply because sometimes people have an idea. Like there was a time when they say, oh, Black people, they can take more pain than anybody else, so they wouldn't get the proper medications. See, things like that. These things become barriers. Then when you think about how we eat, the food that we historically, you had to eat what you could eat. So we figured out how to make pig feet good feet. When James Brown said, get on the good foot, I mean, we took that literally. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So we have diets that aren't always our best friend.
But being a pastor, you hear people say, well, I believe God gonna heal me, and I don't care what no doctor say.
I know you're gonna hear a lot of stuff. You can hear a lot of stuff anywhere you go. But the truth is, our people, our pastors, our congregants, we need to help them get a better vision of what health should be for them. And It is unfortunate. A lot of people think, I believe in laying on of hands.
Me too.
Right? But I know there's a difference in the type of laying on of hands that happen. Because what happened to George Floyd, that was laying on of hands.
I agree.
Y'all hear what I'm saying?
I agree.
So you need to know what's appropriate. And I think sometimes we want to turn God into some magical alliance. But God got common sense. God created common sense. And we need to preach that as much as we preach faith. But you said it yourself, faith without works. Because you put it without action.
That's right.
That's works. It takes action.
Because Luke was a medical doctor.
That's right. And we need to help people understand that science is not against our faith, that they have to work together. And just like men need to understand that women are not their enemy. When they come into this world, many people, a woman don't need to be telling me nothing, whatever the case may be. When she tell you, take your black behind to the doctor, get up and go. You know, it's important because we want our men around for our children. We want them around for their families. We want them around for themselves. And we really do have to do something about these disparities because we're at the back of the bus on everything. COVID, back of the bus. You see what I'm saying?
I understand.
HIV, back of the bus. Thank God you don't have as many AIDS diagnoses as you used to have. There's a difference between HIV and AIDS, right?
Right.
People can live longer with the disease if they get the proper care. And we need to understand we have to make the changes. When it comes to poverty, we're at the back of the bus. We're 12% of the population in this country. We should not be at the bottom of everything.
On top of the consuming and buying.
Right. If we're going to be at the top, we're on the bad top side. You know, and so we have to turn this around. And there's a lot of good things in our community that can help us get there. There are agents of care and change that can make this possible. Touching and healing is good, but you know, I hope it opens up the mind to say, let me go see my doctor too.
That's good. I'm going to come to you, Dr. Will, in 1 second. Dr. Johnson, people don't understand. You spoke about diabetes and how it's the leading cause of people going blind, that people don't understand the importance of their health, their eye health. Then, like you have most people, they lose their sight. You have so many people wearing glasses, and you have, talk about the importance in the community about vision, being, optometry, that importance when it comes to that preventive things we can do,
Sure. Well, first of all, the perception of eye care in our community is who has the best deal on glasses. I get 2 pair plus
American best.
Or I get 2 over here, and that's because they're marketed heavy in our community. So we look at eye care as more transactional instead of being a primary health care source. And that's why I say we connect the dots between your eye care and optical and your overall health. And we have to understand going in to get a thorough eye exam is not just about getting a pair of glasses. That might be all that you need if you're healthy and that nothing else is found. But we have to be on the proactive part. And as I said, many systemic things can happen. So for instance, 50% of the population, adult population, is either pre-diabetic or living with diabetes. 50% of the adult population.
50%.
So, and most people don't know if they're pre-diabetic that they are pre-diabetic. And so we're just, again, another touch point in the history that we acquire in terms of looking at the patient's medication. We also track the patient's height and weight, which is their BMI. That's not only increasing your risk for for diabetes, but it also increases your risk, as does prediabetes, for heart attack and stroke. So, and I'm walking around as a patient living with diabetes myself, because I was a knucklehead. I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, at least I don't have it. So I'm going to keep taking care of my people and I'll get to it.
Wow.
So when I can share my story with my patients, I'm not talking from a soapbox. I'm talking about someone that wasn't paying attention, didn't attend to it quick enough. And so now I really got to be very attentive to the things that I eat, my activity, and all of that. So when I'm preaching to my patients, I'm still preaching to myself. And so, yeah, a lot of us in the healthcare professions have the same afflictions as the patients that we're treating, because we succumb to the same busy. I'll get to it when I get to it. A lot of us are overweight or obese, going to hospitals, clinics, whatever. And so I had to decide I can't just talk the talk. I got to at least try to walk the walk and let people know my own little struggles too. And so we're going to get through this together. And I'm going to keep you seeing if you let me. Right. So, and not only with diabetes, because that to me, that's low-hanging fruit in our community. But as we talked about with HIV/AIDS and hypertension, they're building up these dialysis centers in our community right next to the fast food chain.
See that?
There
yes.
is a connection. If we look at the trend, just the trends in obesity in our community, right behind that obesity trend is diabetes. So when 80% of our women are overweight and 80% of those are maybe obese, our men are not that far behind. But
now, when we
real.
talk about obese, is it from the type of foods? My grandmother, God rest her soul, used to always say, growing your food is better than buying your food.
Yes, it is.
And so do you think the weight is from a lot of these animals being shot up with steroids, or because there was a study, and I don't know if it's true, that we don't produce enough animals for the consumption of all the people on the planet. So if that's the case, where are all these animals coming from? Or are they producing them in a manner that is, these chemicals are making people go blind, or making people health go bad, or making them look like what they're eating?
Well, getting back to what I do every day, there are eye signs in people that are living with obesity and hypertension. So we see early changes in the blood vessels in the back there. And I show people the pictures that this is all connected. I can help you see with glasses, fine for right now. But if that tissue degenerates in the back of the eyes, I don't care how strong a prescription I give you, you can have vision impairment.
And that comes from weight and stuff?
Yes, you're again, carrying extra weight is a risk factor, not only for diabetes, but heart attack and stroke. Why is that? Because it affects the blood flow and the blood vessels in the whole body. It's just that the eye is the only place we can see that live, not after the fact. So if I see that narrowing in the eye, guess what? It's in the kidney, which puts you at risk for kidney dialysis. It's in the heart, which puts you at risk for heart attack. It's in the brain, the delicate blood vessels in the brain, which puts you at risk for stroke. So those are the messages that I try to get on to people. It's not just a harmless kind of thing. And your question was about why. Well, there's a lot of different reasons, right? I'll start out with something with our children. Our obesity rates with our children is through the roof also. But our children, we used to walk to school. We used to walk 30 minutes to school, 40 minutes. Now, because of whatever reason, safety, which is a huge concern, our children take buses. So think about you take them in the car, you drive them and drop them off. So that's 20 to 30 minutes of physical activity going to school, another 20 to 30 minutes of calories being burned, coming home to school. That's every day that our children are not getting. Physical education is poo-pooed on. It's been eliminated from many schools. That little 40, 50 minutes of PE, that's burning calories. These are being eliminated from our children's lifestyle every day that we don't think about. So that's physical activity. So you add up those calories over, 8 to 12 years of school. That's a lot of calories that our children are not burning. Look at the diet. It used to be when we were growing up, McDonald's was a treat if you got to it.
You're right.
If you got it. But my mother was like, we're not spending on, I cook some stuff at home you're gonna eat. So now it's a main staple. Fast food is a main staple for our children. So there's less food preparation at home. A lot of the food that we consume, yes, it is highly processed, which is not good. We have even the vegetables right now. There's a study that I meant to try to pull up where the nutritional value of our same, say, spinach and greens is less now than what it was 20, 30 years ago because the ground has been so over-farmed.
Is that why organic is so important now?
Organic is helpful, but a lot of people see getting organic as price-wise. Well, no, there's a very big difference between cloned and genetically modified food, and that's a whole nother. I just can't see getting a watermelon without seeds. I'm sorry.
That is right.
But genetically modified foods, there's stuff that's produced, that's sold in this country that they do not allow for in Europe.
Wow.
The Europeans don't mess with their food. They grocery shop every day. Why? And they keep it fresh. But today we just so grinding, going to work. We don't have time, and we just grab stuff that's fast, quickly prepared and processed. So the food is a big part. That's 80% of it. And then lifestyle. Dr. Wheeler can chime in. Our own Dr. Thomas is an expert on plant-based eating. So I would defer to her right now.
Dr. Wheeler, because see, the topic is about women's health, women in the Afro-American community, more importantly, not because everybody's health is not important, but right now that's the subject. And that, we have to deal with our own. Now, you being a woman, a doctor, a very educated woman, believer, what is it in our communities why this information is not getting to the women in the community? Is it a lack of fear? Is it a lack of involvement? Because you guys got together to combat this. I want to hear your thoughts on why it's such a disconnect and what are some of the remedies for getting our women, especially our Black women, more educated. Then I want you to talk about what happens if they don't. Well, let's talk a little bit.
Okay. All right. So let's see where we're going to start here.
I don't know about all that.
So you know what? First of all, I want to kind of piggyback on something that Pastor Cusick said.
Come on.
And that is, I call it the gospel barrier. So the gospel barrier is, I know the Lord's going to bless. And so I got a lot of that during COVID. So that's our most immediate sort of major threat. And so I got a lot of it then. And so my response to that would be a couple of things. First of all, I would tell them, I don't know about the God you serve, but let me tell you about the one I serve. The one I serve has everything and everybody at his disposal, even the people who don't want to cooperate. He's got them too. And so if he has convicted me to get up, put my clothes on, and come in here so I can be available to help you, don't be picky about how God can bless you. Because, I think he parted the sky about twice. He probably isn't going to do that for you. So you have some other means, and I might be one of them. And so I come down, a little bit hard on don't put God in a box and say he can only bless you in a certain way, because you're missing out on some of your blessings. So so that's one of the things. And I take my position as being a part of God's hands and feet very seriously. I want to be in that space so that, and I count on some inspiration. What does this patient really need? Because people will come in for one thing and they actually need something else. And sometimes it's just a word of encouragement. So I'll say that. Now, as far as our women, our women are burdened with so many things. And some of what we're burdened with is what our parents and grandparents told us about the experimentation. All of that stuff is real. So when people come in, I can't just sort of push that to the side, because people have real fears, and it's still happening. Our maternal death rate is along there with the third world countries for Black women.
Wow.
It is what it is. And our young women are afraid to come into the hospitals to deliver their babies. There are a lot of women doing home births now for just that reason.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And it goes back, to something else that was already said about Black people not feeling pain. So when a Black woman after a delivery says, you know what, I'm not feeling good, something's not right, they just assume that she might be drug seeking or she's just whiny and complaining. And so her complaints are very often not taken seriously. And by the time someone realizes, oh, maybe we need to check this out, sometimes it's too late.
Wow. Now, do you think lifestyle, far as the extremities of responsibilities, can be one reason why a woman don't take care of health? Because unfortunately, there has been a disconnect in marriages working out, and there's a lot of single family homes where this woman has to be there for the kids and then have to work, and then also have that health. Her health is not priority to her until life stops her. Do you think that's another reason why the health of our Black women have suffered in our communities?
I do, because, to a very large extent, we have been socialized to put everyone else's concern ahead of our own, because, that makes us selfish if we are trying to take care of ourselves and not everyone else. And so, the extent to which women and mothers will take that sometimes goes too far. And what I have tried to do in my practice is remind them that if indeed your children, your parents, your grandparents, or other people are depending on you, it's not a win if you present and you're all beat up and beat down because your health is not good. So doing some self-care, and it doesn't have to be at the exclusion of care for other people, but you do need to take care of yourself. And so, and when I say that to women, they kind of, think like they've never heard it before. Oh, so I really do have permission to take care of myself. You absolutely need to do that. And then, some of us have grown up with well, if it's not that serious, you don't need to see a doctor about it. So there's a lot of misinformation about what kind of things really need to be addressed and what kind of things need to be watched. So for the person who comes in with high blood pressure, they may come in because they have really bad headaches or they have chest pain associated with their high blood pressure. And so since we're talking about women, we'll just sort of stay, along those lines. So when they come in and say, I'm having a little chest pain and I'm having some headaches, they don't realize, and I check their blood pressure and it's, 180 over 110. Well, that's not that high because sometimes I don't feel that bad. And so immediately I want to squash the thought that your blood pressure being too high has anything to do with how you feel. Because there are plenty of patients walking around with their blood pressure in the stroke zone. Wow. And they feel perfectly fine. And so how bad you feel is not always going to give you a clue about what's happening.
Let me hit this point. And this is the point I want you to answer. And Dr. Thomas, right?
Johnson.
Johnson, I'm sorry. Can I ask this question too? As a medical doctor, which is more important, prevention or treatment?
Well, you know what? I'm going to say it this way. You want to get in where you can get in. So if I have the opportunity to do something preventative, then I want to do that. And so, yes, that's going to keep you from having some problems down the road. But wherever you come in, I probably have, I'm praying that I have an opportunity to do some treatment and some prevention. Okay. So this just came to me a couple of weeks ago and I thought, oh, this is so good. I've been telling all my patients. So here it is. I tell them when you hit about 55 years old, you're going to start either reaping the benefits or paying the price for how you have taken care of your health. And then I tell them when you get about 65 and you come in and I close that door and we sit down and have a conversation. My goal for you is helping you to maintain your independence. And so part of that is going to be, let's make sure we have this blood pressure under control. Let's make sure we have this blood sugar under control. Let's make sure your cholesterol is under control. Let's do that. But also know that I may ask you to do some things that maybe your peers are not doing. Because when I ask you to get up and go to the gym every day, it's because I'm trying to keep you mobile so you can maintain your independence. So it's not one or the other. It's really both and.
The reason why I asked that question is because there is a consequence for doing nothing. There is a consequence for not going to the doctor. There is a consequence because as a medical professional, have you ever felt like if I would have gotten to this patient early enough, then maybe I could have prevented some of the things they're going through? And that has to be a grand message in your mission, is that early detection and prevention should be, let's start now, because a lot of times, and it's just human nature, is we wait until it gets so bad.
Well, there's no question that prevention is always best, but I don't always get the opportunity to reach the patient at that point. Sometimes when I have that encounter with the patient, that health cat is already out of the bag. And so now I got to, do some damage control and then try to set them on the right direction. And people are sensitive about things. You got to be careful how you approach them. And so I don't want to make them feel like, you just messed everything up and now all is lost. I try to encourage people that wherever you, first of all, I try to acknowledge that maybe because of lack of knowledge, you were doing the best that you could. I'll give you that. Okay. But going forward, we're going to get some education here so that you can know better and do better. So wherever you're coming in at this moment, this is where we start. And if I get the luxury of starting before you have any major medical conditions, then prevention, oh yeah, we can talk about prevention all day long. And all of it is not medication. You know, a lot of it's lifestyle. I talk to patients about meditation and getting sleep and toxic products that you're using on your skin and in your hair. And if you want to talk about, you know, something else with Black women, let's talk about those toxic chemicals in hair relaxers and synthetic hair, because we're seeing a lot of alopecia.
I put the perms in my head. I ain't got no hair no more.
Well, that's good. But watch what you're putting on your beard.
Okay.
Okay. So there's, you know, there's still a lot that is actually just starting to come out. And so a lot of our women who we never thought would really have problems with fertility, we're finding out that, oh, maybe it had to do with the chemicals that were in the relaxers and some
Like
of the other products.
Johnson with the ovarian cancer.
Exactly.
Okay. Dr. Johnson, just to come back to you, which is more important, especially being in optometry, prevention or treatment? Which, you know, how do you view that? Because I'm gonna ask Pastor Kuzik the same question: prevention or treatment? How do you view that?
Well, I agree with Dr. Wheeler, both and not one or the other. But I think the bulk of our training as optometrists is to how do you handle the train wrecks, and okay, there's this diagnosis. Okay, you have glaucoma, or you have bleeding in the back from diabetes, or you have narrow blood vessels that put you at very high risk for strokes. I need to get you to a cardiologist. So we know, we're taught very heavily, oh, wow, this person needs to go to this specialist, this person needs to go to primary care, this person needs to go to a neurologist. So we, again, are a conduit in the primary healthcare system of things that we find in the eye exam. However, and I'm just, because I do lecture for continuing education around the country to other optometrists. And my colleague, Dr. Leonidas Johnson, no blood relation, but he is actually studying acupuncture. And he brought up the concept that I just learned about, is called salutogenesis versus pathogenesis. And salutogenesis is, well, what causes health? And in other words, it's more proactive, it's more realistic. It's how do we, and I tell my patients, I want to keep you, I'm more concerned about you having fully functional vision 5, 10, 20 years down the road. If I'm seeing you at 40, I'm seeing you at 30, but yet I see that you are carrying extra weight, or you have a family history of glaucoma, or you have hypertension that's undiagnosed, because we check blood pressures in our office. And just like Dr. Wheeler, we'll find people with stroke territory, and we send them to the ER or to urgent care center, and they're walking around and don't know it. And people are like, wow, I've never got my blood pressure checked during my eye exam. Well, that's, for us, that's our standard of care. And then there's pathogenesis, where, you know, what's causing the disease, and we're already treating something. And we see people that, well, I broke my glass, haven't had my eyes checked in 5 years. And they told me I may have a little touch of glaucoma, but I never went back. And I noticed I'm losing vision in this one eye. And if you are noticing changes to your vision with glaucoma, you already have advanced glaucoma, because the clear vision straight ahead is the last to go. So now, wow, my message is, I'm trying to keep the eye that you can still see out of healthy and preventative, and you need to do this treatment, and you need to do these other things, because we cannot repair the nerve damage that's been caused by glaucoma. We can't totally repair the damage, the swelling and the scarring you've acquired over the years from having diabetes and not addressing it, and a number of other things. There are things like autoimmune disease that sometimes we're the very first people to send them to a rheumatologist, because one of the first signs of lupus and sarcoidosis can be dryness in the eye or pain that is unexplained. So there are so many messages that I try to send my patients, again, about we have to do both and catch people where they're at and get them engaged. The younger I can catch them and I start talking to them over a while, the better off they are. Because again, being in practice over 30 years, for example, glaucoma, if I see a person at risk for glaucoma and I'm following them a little bit closer and then I see them converting, I say, you're still in a good place because we've caught it early. Those people we've caught early, they're going to do fine. The odds of them you losing functional vision the rest of their lives, as long as they see us like they're supposed to and follow the treatment plan, is very, very good. But the key, again, is early detection. And just patient education, talking to patients, and establishing their trust. So yes, both, and lifestyle connects to all of that. When I tell people, and women are they're the decision makers in terms of healthcare in the family. They're the ones who drag the husband in. And I'm bringing my husband in to get their eyes checked, or they're bringing their children in. But as Dr. Will says, I tell them, I want you to take care of yourselves first, because if you fall down, the whole ball of cards is going to fall down for your household and for your family.
Okay. Pastor Kuzik, your thoughts on that?
Sure thing. So, not a medical doctor, right? But in social services and in ministry, we run into prevention and intervention.
Okay.
And it is so important that we understand who we're working with. So, for instance, if we can get someone young enough, as Dr. Johnson pointed out, or if in Dr. Willer's case, sometimes he doesn't see that person until they are at the point of needing treatment, depending on who you're working with. So if you can get people in a prevention mindset early on, there are young people who don't have to die in the streets, who don't have to go to jail, because someone is working with them on what we call social emotional learning.
Okay.
All right. Learning how to adjust their behaviors, learning how to think before they act. Those are things that can happen. It's the same thing with health. If we can get people in the right mindset and understanding what behaviors they need to be able to do daily,
okay,
to prevent, these tragic outcomes. There was a gentleman who was diagnosed with cancer, and someone said, "I'm so sorry that you're sick, got sick with cancer." He said, "I was sick before cancer hit me," because he was not doing the behaviors needed to prevent cancer from entering his body. And so
that's good.
We have to see life in this perspective of, where are we on this path? Where are we? And as a pastor, do you know how many people that I have had to preach over in a Baptist way of saying their funerals? It's because of diabetes and then the outcomes of that. It may have been HIV, but they had not been tested, but the opportunistic diseases came in. And what would some people who end up with pneumonia and things of that nature, and they end up, the death certificate said pneumonia, but it was HIV not being treated that kept them from coming through that with a more positive outcome. There's so much that is connected. This body, this mind, the world we live in, is so connected. And when you start dismantling a piece of it, like Dr. Johnson pointed out, like safety for a person to be able to walk to school, and they can no longer do that. Now you're talking about the inability to get the exercise they need. That we have to start looking at how we can prevent, and then if needed, we can intervene with the right protocols and the right therapies and treatments. So, Black people, the revolution will not be televised.
I want to add one other thing, that the elephant in the room in terms of access is your health insurance. And we don't really talk about
Wow.
that enough.
That's
Yeah.
good.
We talk about huge numbers of people in our community that are on Medicaid. And I'll tell you, in terms of Illinois providers, there's eye care desert in the South Side, and in terms of this eye care, we had our community hospitals shutting down and closing down, and there might be more to come, because those hospitals, I'm right here in Blue Island, and Metro South shut down because they had a high percentage of patients on Medicaid, and reimbursements for Medicaid might be 25 cents on the dollar. So it's hard for hospitals to,
Wow.
people say, well, it's hard to find providers to take that card. You have staff to pay, you have overhead. You can't do that. Medicaid rates have not increased in over 20 years, and it's still significantly reduced. So that's the elephant in the room when we talk about access. I also talk about, and this is not just in general in terms of how optometry integrates with the HMO healthcare system. Most HMOs do not allow optometrists to provide the medical care. We might see the vision, to getting glasses exam, but if I see somebody that has to be referred for glaucoma or diabetic eye problems or something that's more acute, they have to go back to their primary care physician and go get an eye care provider, medical eye care provider in their network. And they don't do the vision part. So a lot of times patients are lost in those referrals. Or say we refer them to a county system where they have to literally wait months to get in. You may forget, or for whatever reason can't get there. Stuff happens. So anytime there's a delay in access, that's another barrier in itself in terms of transportation, or a senior, or I got to get my grandson to take me and he got to take off of work. And, when a lot of those things we can handle in our office, but we can't do that under Medicaid, and we can't do it in a lot of our HMO practices, insurance plans. So access is really a barrier depending upon your health insurance.
That's powerful. Dr. Wheeler, are we in a state of emergency? Because is there an urgency in our communities, especially with the health of our Black women at this point in time?
I would say yes. I would say yes. The house is not on fire, but there's definitely smoke, so yeah, there's a lot going on in the communities. And I just wanted to add that, one of the things that we can do to try to help is what we are all doing today. And that is trying to get information out to the public about, what things may be ailing you and the benefit of trying to make a connection. And that term, a trusted provider, is very, very important. A lot of people, I still get people coming into my office saying, oh my God, I've never had a Black physician before, or I've never had a female physician before. Someone just told me that last week.
Wow.
So yeah. So, and then I have some of my younger patients in particular will say that, I looked long and hard because I decided I wanted a Black woman and I was going to find one. And so insurance definitely is a barrier, because if we're not on their insurance panels, then that opportunity is not there. And I tell you what, I'm a bit nervous about what things are going to look like in the latter part of January.
Okay. A lot of people is.
Yeah. And so, we might have to go back to some old school things. I was just recently, I've had the thought that I just want to bless my parents, because my parents had a garden. We grew up on a garden, and we didn't, you kind of think that everybody grows up the same until you get out. And, when I came out here to practice medicine, a lot of people here, they eat one vegetable. They eat green beans. They don't eat anything else.
Where you at now?
I'm sorry?
What's your location now?
Oh, so I'm at Methodist Hospital in Maryville, Indiana.
Okay.
and I do primary care there. But a lot of people, they know about one vegetable. They wouldn't know kale if it bit them, and we had to help plant it and pick it, and we had pear trees. We had to can it and blanch it, and So, and the joke was that if anything happened and you get stuck, you want to get stuck at the Wheeler house, because you for sure will not go hungry, because we just had food like that, and just things that were homemade. I didn't know that you could buy, this is really kind of embarrassing, but I didn't know that you could buy gravy in a jar until I was in college. Because my mother,
buy gravy in a jar.
I didn't know that you could do that. I didn't know.
You messed me up with that one, Dr. Will. I wasn't expecting that one.
Yeah. So because my mother made gravy. And
right.
So there were a lot of things, that we had an advantage in terms of growing up on some good food. And, my dad has passed on. Actually, both parents have passed on now, but I've recently thought, man, I would really like to have had the opportunity to ask Dad why he was so intent on making sure that he had a garden for us, just to hear him say it, just to hear, what his actual explanation was. But I thank him for it, because we're all, much healthier for that. But I have a feeling that we're going to have to band together. We're going to have to go back and do some old school things to get through, because I think that a lot of the resources that we're used to tapping into are going to start drying up.
That's good you said that, because I said on the show that I believe Trump is going to be good for the Black community, because he's going to do something, being that he's going to be so against us. He's going to make us work together. Well, we're going to have to work together to see the significant change, or to have something.
Well, you know what? And I kind of agree with the fact that, in every bad situation, there's an opportunity for something good to come out of it. And I think that what may come out of it for this is that we will see the need that we will have to support each other.
Now, I know that you all have an event next month where you all will be doing free medical screening. Let's talk a little bit about this organization. How did it come about? What made you guys individually join? And do you think that as a great organization that you are making a difference, and this is just the beginning of the difference makers?
Well, the gentleman sitting next to you can give you all the picky details about Dr. Johnson, about how everything started. But we really got going during COVID. And so one of our major objectives was to inform people about COVID, about the vaccines, about things you can do to try to stay healthy through this. And so that was sort of our main sort of rallying point. But we all answered the call from Dr. Johnson. It was his vision that got us started. And, it's his vision that we continue to follow.
Dr. Johnson, what was the main goal behind starting this organization, and what was the inspiration of it? Was it COVID? Was it the need to help people? Or, how did this matriculaze? I'm using the big words. I'm around doctors, so I want to feel intelligent too.
Well, my thought was originally it started with diabetes, because that's a real big emphasis in our practice, and people did not know how to take care of themselves living with diabetes. But again, we're talking 2020, boom, COVID. So we had to pivot, like we often have to do as Black folks. We got to be able to pivot. And so the need was education. Again, at that time, there were no vaccines. The big thing was, where do I get tested? Where can I get tested? People were having problems even getting tested. So our first town hall meeting on COVID was January. We were the one of the very first non-for-profits to have a big town hall meeting. We had over 200 people that registered to find out information about where they can get tested and just so many questions. And then we did a series of probably about 5 or 6 subsequent town hall meetings on as our knowledge and as the treatments and testing has progressed in terms of vaccines. Oh, I'm not taking any vaccine, those kind of questions. That's kind of how we got started. And then there's so many issues in terms of healthcare disparities in our communities. We want to get involved with clinical trials because there's a trust issue.
Okay.
And I'd like to say that my colleague, Dr. Wheeler, Dr. Thompson, Diane Powell, who was former president of Roseland Hospitals. I'm going to miss some people. I'm not going to try to name a whole board, but I have a phenomenal board of directors. And we have what I call street cred. We grew up in the community. We practice in the community. We have trust. I can't mistreat you in my office because you might see me at church this following Sunday and say, what's up with my glasses all jacked up? Or, I get,
You mistreat me. I'm definitely preaching about
you. But again, I'm invested in the community because my children, went to church in the community, brought them up in church, all of that. Fast forward. A big word that I like to use is collaboration. Sometimes we get in our own little silos and try to do it all ourselves. So through Diane Powell, we were introduced to Pastor Cusick here. And this whole project on women's health is a big collaboration, as he mentioned, between the Women's Business Sorority, Block Club, Reverend Cusick and his church, his not-for-profit, and Healthy Living with a Vision Foundation. And that's what's going to really save our community. With collaboration, we got to get out of our own little silos, our own little kingdoms, and work together. And that's what I'm just so blessed to be a part of that and working with you.
Absolutely. I feel the same way. He spoke about Diane Powell, who was formerly the executive director of Metropolitan Family Services Calumet Center. She began working with Healthy Living with the Vision, and she was telling me about some of the things they were doing. And then Chicago Department of Public Health reached out and asked if we had an interest in doing a health fair. You heard how Dr. Johnson, with his vision, had come along, in the board, and how they sort of got to this point. New Life Christian Ministries, where I pastor, we years ago when started an HIV/AIDS ministry, we were very, very much concerned about the community as a whole. So one of the things you have to do when you join our church is we don't vote people in or out. We simply ask them, are you willing to be part of a church who loves the Lord Jesus Christ? And are you willing to be part of a church that is willing to uphold his heritage? And are you willing to be a part of a church that supports his community? If they say yes to all three of that, we say, this is the church for you. And so all of our ministries is designed to effect change in our community, to effect improvement in our community. And then 3 years ago, I started my own organization called Revive, Impact for Change. And like I told you, 32 years, I've been primarily working with young people in the community, 48 years of ministry. It's always important for us to collaborate. And Sister Powell, who's also chairman of my board at the church, she, when we were having our committee meeting, said, I was thinking about collaboration, the term, and I think she said collaboration 5. And I said, well, maybe we should shorten that. We're now Collab 5. So okay. You have Healthy Vision with the Living, you have Lambda Kappa Mu, which is that business fraternity, sorority. You have Revive Impact for Change, New Life Christian Ministries, and the Chicago Department of Public Health. And we couldn't do this without their support. They're providing the funding for this initiative. And we're just excited that we have the right people in the right place at the right time doing the right thing.
Now you say collaboration. It's a great honor because when she approached me, I'm like, yes. As a matter of fact, I'm so blessed by you guys speaking about health, especially women's health in our Black community, that we'll have a couple of shows. Have you had any pushback? I mean, far as the community, far as big organizations, you know, what happens when you look at such a movement to educate our people and to lift up our people? Is there any kind of pushback, or you know, any kind of people throwing barriers or anything like that?
I'm gonna tell you I've had nothing but good things overall.
Okay.
But I'll tell you this, I do get from time to time when I'm talking to people about this, can we do this kind of a mindset? We're so used to being hit, boom, knocked down, boom.
That's good.
And some people,
That's good. Wow.
You know,
good.
And I'm like, God's given us everything we need.
Mm-hmm.
When God made us, he made some powerful stuff, you know, and I just feel like if we can get people out of the fear, the business of fear, we could turn this world around. And I'm just excited.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, I was listening to Dr. Angela Willard, and that experience of that garden, you know, my father, I mean, he had like an acre of land, horses and cows and pigs and vegetables, ran off a little river right there in Gary, right near the expressway. Had us all out there, free labor, working. but
that's what built America.
We shut corn. You hear what I'm saying? He made us till that ground with a hand tiller. Yeah. And those are kinds of those Mama canned all the food. I was thinking about everything. I said, ooh, that takes me back. Those are things that I'm telling you, if there was a food desert when I was growing up, but my father said, not here. In fact, he not only planted on that land he bought, he also planted on every vacant lot in our neighborhood so our neighbors could eat free.
That's powerful.
That's what I'm talking. We got to do this.
But you know, 2 hours go by fast because it's already 2:00 now.
Wow.
It go by fast. That's why I had to have a couple of shows. Mm-hmm. I want to give each one of you guys a chance to get your message across to the people that's listening. Also talk about the event that's happening next month, if I'm not mistaken. When I spoke to Diane Powell, she spoke about free screenings in the month of December. Somebody could talk about that, but also give people your message, what you know, to wake up the people that's listening, because right now, this is probably one of my greatest informative shows that I've had, because you three are brilliant, you know, and I thank God for you guys. Who wants to start off? Talk about it.
I'll start.
Okay, Dr. Willard.
So I guess my takeaway is your health is your wealth. Without your health, the rest of it doesn't even matter. And you need information. There are trusted sources of information. Please consider the opportunity, you know, that these kind of programs allow you to get information, and then certainly attend the events, because, you know, we're there because we want to be there, and we want to be there because we want to be a trusted source of information. There's so much to know. And from my standpoint, I would say I don't try to fix everything with medication, but sometimes medication is necessary. And when it is, you know, I want to use medication for only what medication can do. So for instance, if I have someone who comes in and they have high blood pressure, I want to know what you're eating. And if you tell me that you're going to the drive-through every night, you're eating pizza and Popeyes and those kind of things. So do you need medication? Yes, but you also need a diet adjustment. And so depending on how high your blood pressure is, I may say, look, I'm going to give you this salt handout, and I need you to look it over. And if you find any of your friends on there, you might have to, wave them goodbye and stop eating so much salt in your diet. I try to get people to start looking at the labels of the foods that they're eating. And even, with some of the drive-throughs, if it's a chain restaurant, you can go online and look at the nutritional information. And so if you have that type of lifestyle where, you might have to do a drive-through now and then, at least you can go online, look at the information and choose the lesser of the evils. And then I'll have them come back in a short period of time. Let's just see what some behavior modification will do to your blood pressure. And sometimes the patients are absolutely amazed that when they stop going to the drive-through and started cooking some food at home, I remind them of the benefit of that crock pot. You can put it on, cook it, and walk out. You don't have to stand there and watch it. And so we talk about some things that they can do at home to improve their diets. But when they come back, maybe their pressure is still up a little bit and we may need just a little medication. And so I like to, do those kind of education activities with patients. And I just really want to encourage people to get information and try to get it from a knowledgeable source. Oh, let me just say one other thing. A lot of people will go on Google trying to figure out, what their medical condition is. And some people tend to go right to the doom and gloom. The problem with going on Google is there's so much information there. It's very difficult to figure out what actually applies to you. So I wouldn't necessarily tell someone not to look at all, but I would say, bring your information in, bring your questions in, and let me help you figure out, what applies to you. And I would encourage anyone to do that with their doctor. If you want to do a little research, that's good. But take it to your doctor so that you get the information in the proper perspective. I saw a young lady just this week, and she was absolutely, without exaggerating, I almost want to say this woman had scared herself to the point where she was about to have a heart attack over some information that she had read on Google. And by the time we were finished, she said, "Oh my God, I can't believe that I was just so upset." She said, "I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep because I was afraid I was dying." And it wasn't that bad. So information is power. And I just would really, really encourage people to take advantage of these opportunities to get information and get your questions answered.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the event next month?
I will be there'll be a panel discussion on that second day, which is the 14th of December. And I'll be part of the panel. Now, I don't know as much about the first part, the health fair portion of it. And I think that Pastor Cusick and Dr. Johnson can probably give us more information on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Dr. Wheeler.
For those very important points that you made. So we are looking 2 days, December 7th and December 14th. That's how important health is. We really need to give it as much time as we possibly can. And a lot of fairs you come to, you'll see more resource literature than you're going to see actually the ability to get certain things checked. And so we're looking to lean more heavily on testing and vaccines where we can give them. So for instance, we're going to do COVID testing, COVID-19 testing, and also have someone providing vaccines for people who would like to get them. There will be testing for HIV and AIDS, and then they will be connected with persons if needed for follow-up so that they can have get in touch with either their own physician or another doctor that will allow them to get that movement going with their healthcare that's needed. We're going to have blood pressure testing. We just connected with Tony Oates, who is one of the Black nurses, part of Black Nurses Association, and they're going to be there providing the blood pressure testing for people. There will be eye care testing on December 14th. There, Dr. Johnson can tell you more about that in particular and how that will work. We will also have social workers there so that people need to sit down with someone and get more referral information or any other type of mental health support services. You have social workers there. All of these things are happening in order for us to give our community not only what it needs, but what it deserves.
Okay.
We have to make sure we're the ones standing in that gap. We're the ones bridging being the bridge for the disparities that are in our community. And like I said, Chicago Department of Public Health is helping us make this possible. And so first Saturday, you'll get most of the activities around the testing. Some of that will occur again on that second Saturday, such as the HIV, the COVID, and the eye care.
Okay.
And we may even get somebody again for the blood pressure testing that second day. But that second day on the 14th will be primarily the panel discussions, and there will be at least 2 panels. And we have Dr. Thompson, who will be here next week, also working with Dr. Wheeler, Dr. Johnson, with our great experts in healthcare, answering questions on the spot for people so that they can get some idea of what they need to know and get the right kind of information that is needed. So hands-on testing and information directly from the Black folks' mouths, not the horses' mouths.
I love it. Love it. Dr. Johnson. Now I need glasses, so I'm gonna be to see you because I lost my glasses. So definitely can see you.
Fix that. I am just so excited about this collaboration, and I always get excited when we have our healthcare panel. Dr. Wheeler, Dr. Thompson will be on next week. We always, it's such a blessing to just get the information out there. And if your listeners like this engagement, it's going to be off the chain to the 10th power when they are live with our in-person panel. And we will have additional healthcare experts in various areas talking. We're just getting confirmations lined up. So we're going to have two shifts of panels of health experts from people that look like you. Studies show that Black people do better with Black doctors. There's a famous study in California that said that that African Americans that saw African American cardiologists had a much lower death rate. So there is something there because the communication is so critical and so key. And in terms of being able to relate to the person's lifestyle and diet and making that connection. And, you know, our office is also an internship site for about 4 different schools of optometry. All of my interns, most of my interns do not look like me. But one thing that I do emphasize with them is ask the patient, how do they live through life? You have to be able to relate to them. How do they use their eyes? How they use their eyes, how they move through space, how they eat, how their day-to-day stresses may be quite a bit different from your own community. So you've got to be able to make that connection and just listen. I did another lecture, Serena Williams, and we talked about Serena, who almost died in childbirth because she was having severe pain. And they were like, oh, it's nothing, or you're just being emotional or whatever. And she almost died.
Wow.
Because it wasn't, and with all her money, all her resources, going to one of the best hospitals that they are. So stuff happens, and we have to address it, and we have to talk to each other and learn. A lot of times we're fearful from talking to our practitioners. We don't know what to ask. Well, if you don't know what to ask, you definitely know if they're not listening to you. So if they're not listening to you, find another practitioner. Don't be afraid to get a second opinion. And if they're offended, oh well, this is your body. Take control.
Now, let me ask you this question. Is this a collaboration where other medical doctors can join, or organizations can join to be involved? I mean, because, Sluice's radio show definitely love to collaborate. This is a beautiful collaboration because, this is what my show is all about, is to offer solutions. Because we know what the problems are with. We all know we have problems, but give me a solution. If I'm hungry, don't tell me about a great recipe. That's not going to, calm my hunger. Help me get something to eat, or show me how to fish so I can feed myself. But don't just tell me how good you can cook, because that's going to be good. So what if there was other medical facilities and doctors wanted to join, or other organizations? Is it a screening process, or is it really based on, your gut feeling when you pick these organizations, or how can it be a part of it?
Well, I think Dr. Wheeler actually oversees our speakers bureau. But there's an application process. And so we like to think that we vet whoever we want to add on to our speakers bureau. And but we are looking to partner. I mean, there are major healthcare facilities, and healthcare is so transactional now. I'm sorry, but it is.
Talk about it.
But there are, major healthcare facilities, and we're not against partnering with them. But as long as our values align, we are always open to that conversation.
Okay. And Dr. Willard, when this thing is all said and done, when you look back at this organization, and this could be years ago, you're long gone. What do you want? What legacy do you guys want to leave when they said, Dr. Wheeler in her lifetime, she tried to do what?
I tried to listen. I tried to listen enough to understand the suffering. I tried to accept people where they are, and whatever condition you're coming in, that's just a starting place. There's no judgment, but just a starting place. And if we come up with a plan and you don't get it right, then, we just start again. Maybe we look at some different ways to approach it. But just that I was committed to trying to help people from where they are, help them with a vision for where they'd like to go, and really just kind of enjoy the ride. Because I that's just one of my great joys in practicing medicine, is to see someone get it, and to see someone improve, and see someone really kind of take some of the tools and make them their own. That's just the best. And so that's sort of what, my quest is to approach people. And like I said, it's definitely important to acknowledge where people happen to be, because they come, especially this time of year, there are a lot of people who are suffering emotionally. This might be the first year that their loved one is gone, and they don't know how to handle that. And so they may have high blood pressure. Well, if I see you twice a year for blood pressure, but now I've seen you for the third time this month, you're not coming in about your blood pressure. You're coming in because your soul is hurting. And so it's up to me to try to figure out, okay, they're here for a different reason. Let me see if I can tease that out and then give them some kind of support to help them go through the holiday season. And even, on a lighter note, I make my public service announcement about this time. I tell them, okay, we're now in the season of the feeding frenzy. It starts with the Halloween candy, and it rolls right into Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's. And if you're a football fan, it rolls right into the Super Bowl. And so I just try to remind people to use a little bit of caution. Use a little bit of caution. Sometimes we talk about some alternatives, for the snacks and things that they're eating. But just to have information, that you have power when you have information, and anything that I can do to help you along those lines, I'm very happy to do.
Same question, Dr. Johnson. Is this part of your legacy, this organization? And, when you long gone, they say, well, Dr. Johnson tried to do what? How would you like them to remember you by?
Wow, just to be God's instrument. And like our theme verse, people without vision will perish. Just to give people vision, not just the literal sense in terms of sightseeing 2020, but how do they move through life? How do they engage with their fellow man? First of all, starting on with their own health and connecting those dots. And that's probably this foundation, Healthy Living with a Vision, is bigger than me. There's Deborah Hurston, who's, again, one of our founding board members. She was like, well, just because you founded it, this doesn't mean the board can vote you out, which is true in a true not-for-profit. And sometimes we try to take that personal ownership. But I'd love to see this organization grow. There's no reason it can't be as big as Salvation Army, the Red Cross. And I've said that to my board tons of times. And we've only been in existence for 4 years now, or 4.5 years. And we're definitely going in the right direction. And again, it's not just about me. It's about a phenomenal board of directors that we have. And I'm so blessed to have this. And this is what we do, because we have a special bond ourselves. And a lot of us have gone through our own personal hardships and tragedies with health and death in our families, but we lift each other up. And I'm going to start off by saying the dedication. Dr. Wheeler had a whole bunch of stuff to do because tomorrow is her birthday. So I'm going to start off. She might get me for this.
It's okay. It's okay.
Happy birthday tomorrow, young lady.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Commitment to being here, to our mission. So if we spread that kind of vision in our community, I'm good. By God be the glory.
Pastor Kuzik, you finish us out. Take us home. You used to give it a benediction. You can take us home.
I appreciate that, brother. So legacy, that when people think back, they'll say he was intent on being a better person and helping other people to be better. That's what I would love for the legacy to be. Sometimes I get really emotional when I think about what our people have been through. And I rejoice when I think about what we made of, what we've been through, the resilience, the creativity, the love. And so I'm ever hopeful and ever focused on connecting with as many like-minded people, like-minded spirits. To God be the glory, some may say, and some may say that it's through his power and his grace that we are here today. Amen. So if that's true, then it must be that same power and grace that will bring us to our tomorrow. And with that, I'm out.
Amen. Amen. I want to thank you guys. It's been a great honor to have you guys here. It's been one of the most powerful shows. This is part one. Part two is next week, where we have another group of doctors. Is there somebody you want to say hello to? Significant others you want to say hello to? No,
Yeah,
Dr. Willard, you want to say hello? You got significant other?
Not in the way you're asking. I have significant family members.
You don't know how to act right. They ain't acting right.
I may have some family members that are watching, and I appreciate their support. I am going to actually see family later on this week for Thanksgiving, and I'm just very excited about that. So yeah, shout out to my family.
Okay, Dr. Johnson, the significant other you want to say hello to? Family members, hello.
Yeah, I got to shout out to my wife Tangi, who and I lost my mom this summer, so she was so instrumental in helping me through all of that. And I have two children I'm going to shout out to. My daughter's in California, Taylor, who's behind the camera. She runs a camera, Steadicam, and my son Jordan. So I just give them a shout out. I'm very grateful for. So, and then my staff that helps me in my office day to day. Again, it's not about me, but we work as a team to just help people every day. And my mantra is just treat people like you want to be treated. And if you want to be treated like a king and queen, then that's what we got to do for the people that we engage with every day.
Amen.
Pastor Kuzik, you want to say
hello? Oh, certainly. Shout out to my lovely wife, Lolita, to my daughter, Sydney, who is in New York City, who is an actor, writer, producer, film, all that good stuff. My eldest son, Philip Amiri Charles, and my youngest son, Jeffrey Andrew Rhodes Cusick. So all of them want to say shout out to, and I got to give a shout out to New Life Christian Ministries. If I don't say that, I'll be in trouble tomorrow morning. And I will say this real quick. The sermon for tomorrow is from the scripture, without a vision, the people perish.
Ooh, confirmation.
And if you talk about confirmation, isn't that something? So that is the message, the scripture for tomorrow. So I'm going to put a pin there and leave it at that. I'll pick it up on Sunday morning.
Well, people of God, we got a couple of minutes. Because I'm on the show with distinguished guests and doctors, I promise on Thanksgiving I will not eat any pig feet or chitlins. I won't do them. I want to make sure I say that now, because I see Dr. Willard looking at me like,
Listen, I am not going to be policing anybody's plate. I will not. We will try to provide some healthy dishes, though. We will do that, but I'm not policing anybody's plate.
Yes, so most definitely. Well, it has been a pleasure, people of God. Y'all like, love, and share. It was such an honor having this show. This was an amazing show. Remember, you have to be your own rescue. And also, we love you guys. Thank you for your support. Without you, there'll be no us. Ladies, get screened. Go to the doctor. It is important that we get this information to our communities. It's needed. Love you guys. And please understand that you have to be your own rescue. You're responsible for rescuing yourself. Get up and make a change. We love you guys.
Can you give the address to our screen, the healthcare?
Yeah, give the address, please. I'm sorry.
8201 South Jeffrey Boulevard, Chicago, Illinois, New Life Christian Ministries. 8201 South Jeffrey Boulevard, Chicago, Illinois, New Life Christian Ministries. And maybe we can bring the flyer for to be shown next week.
Yes,
on the screen.
We can do that.
Yep.
So love you guys. Enjoy your Saturdays. Be safe. And we will see you guys next Saturday. Bye.